Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for hopping on or watching on the replay. And thank you to everybody who joined Summer Slim Down this week. It's always such a fun little like reset or way for you to kind of try out a few things of the program that I coach. So I'm really glad that you are here. But today we're going to talk a little bit about hormones and how they are affecting how you feel and your weight loss. A lot of people think of hormones just as like estrogen and progesterone, which those two are also very important when it comes to how you feel and your weight loss. As we get into menopause and perimenopause, our estrogen is kind of erratic. Um, our estrogen is like up and down, so you have all these crazy symptoms, and then when you get to menopause, it takes a deep dive. And the same thing happens with progesterone. So it just like slowly starts to exit the scene. And this can cause you to, lower estrogen can cause you to store belly fat, especially dangerous fat like the visceral fat. And progesterone, when it's lower, it's harder to sleep. You have more anxiety. You don't, you just don't feel like yourself. So those definitely play a part. So if you are heading toward menopause or past menopause, and menopause is when you have been without a period for 365 days, that's the day of menopause. And then after that, you're post menopause. So you may want to talk to your provider about replacing those hormones with estradiol and progesterone. A lot of people start with progesterone and then add in estradiol. But that's up to you. But that can help you to feel better. And it can't, it doesn't really always correlate to weight loss. But sometimes, just like even feeling better will help you to work out more and, or have that motivation again. So those two are your sex hormones. And then you've heard a lot probably about cortisol lately. Cortisol is our stress hormone. Um, just a second, letting somebody else in. Cortisol is not all bad. We need it. It gives us that quick source of energy that we need for waking up in the morning, for our immune system, but we just don't want it chronically high. So, stress in our brain tells our adrenal glands what to do, which our adrenal glands are what affect our thyroid, which our thyroid, and that's another thing to get checked when you get your blood work because our thyroid affects our metabolic rate, okay, our metabolism. So it can lower progesterone, it can inhibit digestion, lower immunity, cause you to have bloating, anxiety, inflammation, that kind of thing. So the stress can really impact all of those. So if you're always in that fight or flight, things like you have stress in your life, we all have stress in our life, but like you have aging parents or teenagers or work, that is stressful for you. Maybe you have no downtime ever. Um, that can, that constant fight or flight can cause our I wouldn't say cholesterol, our cortisol levels to remain high. And that's exactly what we don't want because, if you're always feeling like overwhelmed or pressured or busy, rushing around, prioritizing everybody else instead of yourself, then you're going to have those symptoms like anxiety and poor sleep. Feeling unmotivated, like having those low hormones. Maybe you can't lose weight even though you're doing all the right things. You have gut issues, the bloating, the inflammation, like I said. So if you feel like no matter what you do, your body's holding on to belly fat. Maybe you wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. most nights. A lot of times that could be cortisol. It could also be blood sugar, but um, afternoon energy crashes, feeling like tired at night, but you're wired and you can't fall asleep. And so we have to make sure that we are supporting our cortisol, our vagus nerve, our nervous system, because it really affects everything. We have a vagus nerve that runs from our brain all the way down into, and it kind of has like these nerve endings that go all into our nervous system. So we want to make sure that we're not always in that fight or flight, that we are able to calm ourselves down so that we can repair tissues, digest food, um, because those affect how we feel too. So the goal isn't to get rid of stress because we're not going to be able to get rid of stress. It's to be able to move between that parasympathetic and sympathetic state easily, so that you can become stress resilient. So when stressors come, you can, rest and digest and detox and heal. Um, because as we age, we become less stress resilient. So we start to feel these things a lot more. And I know that you're here because you want to feel confident and energetic. And if you have this, it's kind of like trying to drive a car with the emergency brake on. No matter how hard you push the gas with like your nutrition and exercising, you're not going to move forward because your cortisol levels are keeping your body in that state. So you have to, all these pieces have to work together, because cortisol impacts fat storage too. So what chronic high cortisol levels can do is they can lead to increased appetite, cravings. So that's going to make it hard to lose weight. Redistributes fat into that visceral region, the belly region, deep abdomen region around your organs, which fat cells in that area have more cortisol receptors. So, and then it can lead to chronic cortisol can contribute to insulin resistance. Have you heard that? And I'll talk about that in a second, which makes it harder for you to lose weight. Can contribute to muscle breakdown, which is hard enough at this age as it is um, to build muscle, but you're making it harder on yourself if you have insulin resistance. And then, or if you don't have muscle, because muscle helps with that insulin resistance, it can cause, sleep and hormone disruption. Um, which if you have poor sleep, then again, like I said before, you're not going to want to work out, or you're going to have low energy. You're not going to be motivated. And it's just like a vicious cycle. So, a few things that you can start doing now for that cortisol is a protein focused breakfast in the morning, which if you followed any of the meal guide or you've seen what we do, we really focus on getting enough protein at each meal. You can do 5 minutes of deep breathing or meditation. You really want to just support that nervous system, with good sleep, a good bedtime routine. Legs up the wall is a good one. You lay flat on your back with your legs up the wall. Even your nutrition and your exercise choices are going to impact your cortisol. So if you're doing a lot of crazy cardio, which hopefully none of you guys are at this point, maybe hopefully you've seen that we really we do short hit so that we're not, it's okay to increase your cortisol temporarily. We just don't want it to be like an hour long hit, an hour long cardio class or 45-minute long cardio class. We want it to be short and really effective, and then also focus on strength training. And then make sure you're eating enough. So many women come to me that are not eating enough. And maybe you saw that from the meal guide this week, that maybe you realized that, like, oh gosh, I have some work to do there. So it's not about getting rid of stress. It's really just about supporting your body. Um, and then let's talk about nutrition for a second. So did you know that eating a healthy, like eating healthy breakfast foods like oatmeal, fruit smoothies, avocado toast can actually spike your cortisol and your insulin. So you have to make sure you're pairing that with enough protein. Maybe you've noticed, like, a lot of people will tell me, I'm eating healthy, but I'm not seeing results. Okay, well, what does that mean? Just eating healthy foods isn't going to be enough. I mean, maybe that worked when we were in our 20s and 30s, but now that we're maybe more insulin resistant, stress resilient, or stress sensitive, those things aren't working. So we just have to be a little bit more intentional. It's not like we have to do all these things. It's just with the things that we are doing, let's be more intentional. So speaking of being insulin resistant, insulin is another hormone. And if you become insulin resistant, it can make it harder to lose weight. And it can really tank your energy too. So, a lot of times we become insulin resistant because in perimenopause and in menopause, postmenopause, we're less active. We're not chasing toddlers around or playing with kids outside as much. We're driving them around or we're sitting at a desk. And then that estrogen declines, which also contributes to it. We have less muscle mass unless we're actively building muscle. We have more belly fat, inflammation. So, insulin is our fat storing hormone. So, that's why this all kind of works together. When it's chronically high, it's okay for it to spike because after a meal, it's going to spike. It's just, we don't want it to stay that high. We want to regulate, we want it to come down fairly quickly and to stay kind of stable most of the day. And maybe you've heard that about blood sugar. Um, but if it's chronically high, we're going to store fat because the excess glycogen, the excess insulin, sugar, gets stored as fat, and it inhibits us from burning fat. So it can also cause fatigue and irritability and cravings. So, insulin resistant means that we don't respond well to carbs. So a lot of people say like go low carb. Well, that's the great thing about this program is that you don't have to go completely low carb. You maybe saw that we do a couple lower carb days, but then we refuel because we do need carbs for muscle building, for energy, for thyroid support. So we're going to want those, in the right amounts. That's kind of the key. So some things that you want to make sure to do. Make sure you're always eating protein with all of your meals. 30, 35 grams is ideal. Try, less snacking, larger meals if you can. Not eating your carbs by themselves. Like, don't just have an apple. Try to pair that with something else. And then move for 10 minutes after your meals. Just walk around, do squats, go outside, do something so that those carbs have somewhere to go. So if you have more muscle too, that's going to help you with your insulin sensitivity because muscle is going to be a place where that glycogen can go. So, um, making sure that you're eating the right amounts also, and that's kind of what we dive into. If you join me for the 6 weeks, we customize and make sure that you're actually eating the right amount. So, this it can, like I said, it can eliminate those cravings. A lot of people will say, when they start balancing their meals, they really don't have I mean, sometimes you're still going to have cravings, but the mindless snacking kind of goes away. And then, you feel full and satiated through the day. And that comes with getting enough fiber as well. So, that's why my macros are really a game changer. And if you watched the training that I sent out, I talked a little bit about it, but it helps you to get faster results because you don't feel restricted. You get to eat plenty of food, but you're eating it more intentionally. So, you don't have to track macros forever, but I do find that it is super important to know how much you're actually eating. By the way, if you guys are having questions on any of this, just put it in the chat and I'm happy to answer. It is super important to know the amount that your personal body needs, and then track for a period of time because you really don't know. It's really impossible to know and really hard to eyeball and to just guess, especially when it comes to like protein and fiber and making sure you're getting the right amount for your body. It really takes and we didn't really get into it this week, but it really takes less than 5 minutes a day once you get it down. And our app, actually, if you tried any of it, and you can try this today if you want, you can voice log. You can just say to the phone, like I had 4 ounces of chicken breast and 1 cup of rice and 1 cup of broccoli, and it will just track it for you. You can take a picture of your food and it tracks it for you. So, and I really teach you this in the 6 week program. You get customized macros from me to make sure that you are getting exactly what you need. So, and then as far as like the exercise goes, um, if you haven't noticed, I am big on strength training because we need the muscle mass. We lose 3 to 8% per decade as we age, and it's really what's going to help you with that blood sugar. It's going to help you age well so that you can get up off the toilet by yourself, so that you can, be able to continue an active lifestyle as you age. It helps with your bone health, which we know osteoporosis, as estrogen levels decline, becomes a thing. So we want to prevent falls and fractures as we age. It improves that insulin sensitivity. It really helps your metabolism because the more muscle mass you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate, which means like the more calories you're burning just while you're laying on the couch. Helps with joint health and mobility and mood. And it really is empowering just to be able to like feel strong. And you're not gonna like bulk up. A lot of people are worried, oh, I don't want to like look like a bodybuilder or whatever. Well, most of us could never look like that, even if we tried. So it's more for the independence as we age, the overall health. It helps you to lose weight, helps you get that toned look that you want. Like if you want to look toned, you have to build muscle. You want to burn the fat, build the muscle. So that's like you've got to be lifting weights and not the like 2 pound weights that you get, at a HIIT class or something like that. So um it's hopefully you tried the workouts this week and we're really effective in our workouts that we do. They're not long, they're 30 minutes and or some of them less than that if it's HIIT, but really effective. So we just don't want to see that decrease in your BMR, your resting metabolic rate, which is kind of what happens as we age. If we don't have that muscle mass, our resting metabolic rate can go down like 250 calories a day, which doesn't sound that much, but it actually is. So that's why you need the kind of, I call it like the three-part method, which is your cortisol in your nervous system, and blood sugar nutrition, and then strategic workouts, that strength training hit, and then adequate recovery. We want to make sure that we're recovering because we don't recover like we used to. We can't work out every day or even 6 times a week and really get the most um, out of our workouts. So you're probably thinking like, oh, this all makes sense, but like, will I really, how will I really like put all this together? And again, it's not that you have to do all these things all the time, but it's something to work towards. And I always say, just like take baby steps, one day at a time, and then those baby steps lead to big results. Because if you're doing, all the right things, or you feel like you're doing all the right things and it's not working, it's just a few tweaks that you need to actually start seeing results. So, does anyone like this is the analogy I like to use. Have any of you ever played the piano? Type yes in the comments, or not the comments, but the chat if you've ever played the piano. Maybe none of you guys have, but it's like you can buy the piano book, right? And you might learn to play a little bit from like looking at the piano book. But the quicker way to become a good piano player is to have a piano teacher who can give you the tips and teach you like, uh, the little tricks, and then also keep you accountable to going to that lesson every week. And it's the same on your fitness journey. Like you can try to do it alone, but how many of us have tried that? I know I was always trying that and didn't get to where I wanted to be, or made such slow progress that, it was frustrating. So that's why, I offer the coaching, the 6 week program. Um, I'll just tell you real quick kind of what's included in that. If you are considering, you get custom macros from me, which means you fill out an assessment form and I review that, and then I give you custom macros to put into your app. This is based on like your specific needs, your goals. And you've seen the workouts that you get for all fitness levels. We have that the foundations workouts, and then we have the regular workouts. And then if you do go on to VIP, in VIP, you also have advanced workouts. And then you have somebody doing a modifier. I'm sure you noticed the person in the back right doing a modifier. You get daily coaching from me. So, unlike this week where there was a big Facebook group, I have a small group on a separate app, an app that's just for groups, where I give you one post every day. And it's your education, it's teaching you what you need to know. And then if you comment there, if you check in with me there, I respond to you every day with feedback. And then, of course, I text you and email you every week to check in. You can text me anytime with any, personal questions. But it's also really nice to have the community of other people doing it with you, because sometimes we can feel, on an island trying to do it ourselves. So, and then we can adjust, things for you personally anytime that's needed. One thing people ask me about, like, oh, I don't like to fast. And I think I told you guys in one of the emails that most of my clients are doing 12 to 14 hours of fasting. So that's like dinner at 7 p.m., breakfast at 7 or 8 a.m. A lot of women are not doing the 16 hours. So don't get worried about that because it's very flexible, it's very customizable. Um, and then, I talked about the app and how it does really help to make things simple. So, week one, you'll start to notice reduced bloat. Maybe you already have this week. Hopefully, you're starting to like see a little bit of energy or maybe a little less bloating. And then cortisol will start to regulate. And then in week two, clothes might start fitting a little differently as your inflammation goes down. Week three, really start to notice body composition changes, meaning like getting stronger. And then weeks 4 to 6 are when people really start to see the results of fat loss, improvement in, their mood and their energy and their digestion. So typically I see 10 to 15 pounds of weight loss in the first 6 weeks. Some people that have a little bit, less weight to lose. Sometimes it's, only like 5 pounds. And then they'll continue on in VIP where you continue to see that. So it's not a quick fix. It's not like, oh, you're going to lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks because that's not sustainable. We want to make sure that this is something that you can sustain for the long term. So, but most people are shocked at that they're actually finally able to see results because I was shocked. I'm sure you've seen my before and after pictures, and I share my clients' wins on my stories as well. But one of the biggest things that I hear is, I finally feel like myself again. And, I think that that is kind of like what we all want. It's like we just want to feel like ourselves again. So, I am offering anybody who signs up today, Friday, by the end of the day, I'm going to send you my 7-day Calm Your Cortisol challenge that I normally charge for. So you'll get that as an added bonus, but you'll get $20 off and then free BCAAs, which are branched chain amino acids, which really help with muscle building and energy and recovery. You'll get those for free if you sign up by Tuesday. So we do start on Monday. Does anybody have any questions for me about the program, about what we did this week, about hormones or anything like that that I can answer for you? You can put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. If you're watching on the replay, you can text me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm truly just like passionate about helping women at this age to feel good again. So, and part of that is the confidence that you get from feeling good in your clothes, from those shorts fitting this summer to like going, to barbecues or to seeing friends or whatever, and just feeling more confident in your own body. And of course, longevity is also a big thing too, because we all want to age well. So,
I have a question
yeah, sure.
about the weights. When you're starting off, whenever I watch the three people, they're using 20, 30-pound weights. As a beginner, and I'm actually a senior, what weight should I start with?
Yeah. So, first of all, I would write down, and you'll see in the app, I think under the clipboard, there is a workout tracker. I think that's what it's called. Excuse me. I would write down what you're using so that you can see the progress, but it's all going to be individual. So maybe start with like fives and tens. So fives for like arms, tens for legs. but your last two reps that you do should feel hard. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how you gauge what weight to use for that. So those last two reps, you should be able to keep your form, the good form. Like you don't want to be, swinging or really straining yourself. But if you can keep good form and those last two reps, you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I can do more than this. But if you feel like you can keep going, like you're like, oh, I could do 10 more, then that's too light. So you need to go up.
Okay, great. And then a second question I have,
Yeah.
if you have cholesterol issues, first of all, I've loved all of the recipes for this week. I
Yeah.
surprisingly, I've really enjoyed them, and I have noticed a change in my bloating. But
Yay.
like with bacon and that, some of the things are cholesterol causing or creating. And how do you deal with keeping the cholesterol down?
Yeah. So I also have a little bit elevated LDL because I have the genetic higher cholesterol, which I'm working on as well. So you're going to see differing opinions on this. So some people will say, watch your saturated fat. So if you do want to watch your saturated fat, if you ever see anything in the meal guide that you're like, I don't like that, or that's not, really helping me with my goals, you can always swap it out. So if it's something like bacon, which is just a higher fat protein, we have a list in the app of other proteins. You can just swap it out for something else, or you
Okay.
can add more egg whites
Mhm.
instead. If it's like eggs and bacon, you can take out the bacon and just add more egg whites. Um, or you could do like smoked salmon or something like that. You can swap anything. And
Okay.
that's the great thing about macros, and you will learn this as you start to track your macros, is that if it fits within your goals, you can really sub anything that you want. But most of what we eat is anti-inflammatory, whole food, and that's really going to help you. Low sugar or no sugar. That's really going to help you with those cholesterol numbers. So the biggest thing with cholesterol, one of the biggest things is people have high triglycerides, and that can really, really be affected by food. So limiting alcohol, sugar, processed foods, really focusing on fiber. You want to get probably not just 25 grams like it says in the app. You probably want to get 30 grams of fiber. Things like oatmeal, avocado, um, berries, all these things with leafy greens. These fiber foods can also help with that cholesterol. So, but saturated fat, that's, yeah, the fattier cuts of meat, your ground beef. And so it's not that you can't ever have those. It's people will say, and again, there's differing opinions. Some people say like it's totally fine to have the saturated fat. You just want to maybe not have it like for every single meal.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Hmm. Any other questions?
I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure, Diana.
I, so I've been following the meal plans for the most part, although I do make bigger batches, so I haven't tried all of them because we just reheat them here.
Yeah.
Um, I'm used to having, when I followed macros, I'm familiar with those, more like 140 to 150 grams of protein, and I noticed there's not as much protein. Um, is it okay if I continue, like if it's fitting within to go over with the proteins?
Yeah. So the thing about the meal guide is that so this is for everybody. So because we would all have different customized macros, it's about 1,600 calories. So some people that's a little too much, some people that's a little not, not quite enough. And so you'll sometimes have to just adjust what the meal guide has. You may need to increase, if it says 4 ounces of chicken, you may need to have five. Um, and that's fine. That's what you should do, especially if you're tracking macros. Is make sure you're hitting your personal goals. The meal guide's just a guide. It's not like a customized meal plan just for you. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, I wasn't sure when you do the 6 week program if and you get your customized macros, um, if if the proteins would be that low. I'm just so used to having
Yeah.
so much more protein.
What
I thought, oh, that's a little low.
what I usually do is about 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. So if your ideal
Yeah.
body weight is 140, then you would probably be around 140 for protein.
Okay. And then the second thing was a question about gluten. I just everything was gluten free.
Yeah.
I'm not like a huge gluten person, but I do generally like those mission wraps
Yeah.
and they have so much fiber. And I
Yeah.
find like I've been trying to increase my fiber in the past 6 months because I never really paid attention.
Yeah.
And I find I get a lot of fiber from those. So are those something that you would say definitely not on the program or just like sparingly?
Yeah, so what I say about dairy and gluten is that for both of those, I do like to see you try to go without those for the first 3 to 4 weeks, only because I see a lot of my clients realize that it was causing bloating or digestive issues or whatever. But I also say, like, I'm not the food police. I'm not gonna tell you you can't eat this or you can't eat that, because we have to make this, work for us. And we're not always going to eat whole foods, and we're going to have dinners out, and we're going to, have treats. We encourage treats, and sometimes a treat's a donut or something. I do like to see people try without it just to see if the inflammation goes down, or if anything changes, and then slowly like reintroduce those if that's something that you love. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's like, there's no like can't have foods. But sometimes it can be worth a try to just give it a try for a few weeks.
Oh, I love my Greek yogurt. This is this
Same
is a
thing.
thing.
Same thing. Like if you love it and you can't live without it, I'm not going to tell you that you can't eat it. Anything else, guys? Okay, well, just text me if you have any other questions. But thank you guys so much. I want to hear your wins. I want you to text me or email me back and tell me like what you thought of this week. Or again, if there's any like, anything that you have any suggestions on, I'm totally up for that too. But I would love to hear from you and how the week went. So, okay, guys, thanks for hopping on. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.